Today, you're all here for Align to Win, what funders really want to see. So, to get us started, what this workshop is a free grant workshop that is an instrumental educational webinar. Our goal is always to focus on challenges that grant writers are trying to solve while identifying different tools and resources to support them along their way. So, again, I know a few of you folks have been to our webinars before, but if you haven't, welcome. We're happy to have you. And for those of you who are new to Instrumentl, we are the most loved all-in-one grants platform for grant prospecting, tracking, and management. We currently help over 4,000 nonprofits and grant consultants save time in finding and applying for more grants. Couple of quick FYIs. I know we've got a couple of questions about this already, but today's event is 1 hour long, and that includes our presentation and a Q&A. This session is being recorded, and there is a workbook link that Rachel dropped in the chat for us today. So feel free to open that up, and you will also get both that workbook link and this session at the end of the call. And lastly, we always want to make sure that all of you folks here today feel very comfortable taking care of any personal needs that come up during the session. We know that we are all very busy and working super hard, so we really appreciate your time and the fact that you took time out of your busy days to be here. So if you need a second to grab a snack or step away for a moment, you do you. We'll be right here. And again, you'll get that recording right at the end. But I would encourage you folks to stay till the end because we'll be doing a raffle for folks who stick around and take our feedback survey. And what the raffle prizes will be a 3-month subscription to Headspace, as well as a really exciting book from our speaker. He'll share a little bit more about that in just a bit. So you'll leave today's event with a clear understanding of why strong proposals might fail. And this is where a lot of frustration begins, right? Like you've drafted this beautifully written, well-researched proposal only for it to get rejected, and that really stings, especially when you leave feeling like you did everything right. So our guest speaker today is going to help us uncover what it is that funders are really looking for and how exactly a practical roadmap to spot and solve this misalignment can help. So by the end of this session, you'll also have a really clear roadmap that you can take back to your team and actually use to increase your fundability. And lastly, we'll use some of that newfound clarity to build a focused, well-aligned list of funders. And we'll highlight some of the quickest way to spot that alignment that our speaker will highlight using 990 data in Instrumentl. So to start us off, quick introduction of myself. I'm Shaylee. I'm an events and community manager here at Instrumentl, and my job is to help host and develop these educational events to share with our Instrumentl community. I also want to call out my teammate Rachel, who you'll be hearing from in just a bit, and she's also here in the chat. So both of us will be bopping around to answer any questions as they come up. Hi, Robert. Hi, Bob. Hi, Shane. Seeing still some folks introducing themselves, which is great. Keep on doing that. And now I am super excited to pass it off to Chermain Jennings, who's our featured speaker today. Chermain's presentation is going to bring a really tactical and systems-driven approach to grant and organizational readiness. And we're so super excited to have her here. And so I'll give her a second to introduce herself to you.
Hello, hello. I am Chermain Jennings. I have a lot of titles now. These are new titles, so I'm getting adjusted to them. But I'm a grant strategist and the founder of Clarity to Capital, which we'll actually be working through today. I have about 15 years of experience, both in the nonprofit space and now in the corporate arena. I'm a new author, federal reviewer, and in the corporate space, currently, I am a proposal manager for a consulting company. So that is me. I also am a GPA approved trainer, so my focus is on grant readiness. And I don't know how many of you attended a session that I did in 2022, I believe it was, where I focused on grant readiness versus client readiness. And this is kind of aligned, but that version was more geared towards those who were consultants. And so it allowed you to get an idea of what it would look like to assess whether a client was a good fit for you, and pursuing grant funds based on your capacity and where they currently were. So that is a little bit about me in the beginning. Like I said, I'm now an author, Grant Ready, a nonprofit's guide to becoming fundable before you apply. Keyword before. The presentation will be based on this book. So if you stick around, you get pretty much a good idea of what we'll be covering in the book. And I think based on some of the templates provided both in the workbook and in the book itself, if you happen to grab a copy, you'll be able to get your organization 10 times forward in terms of a head start. So highly recommend getting a copy if you have not seen it before. Okay, so why I am here. First, I'm here because I wanted to really get people on board with the idea that it's not just about writing beautiful proposals. You can write an amazing proposal, but if you're not aligned, it won't work. So you can't outright misalignment. And then also clarity brings capital, hence the clarity to capital framework that I created. And so I have several organizations that I've worked for. I'm sure all of you are familiar with Girl Scouts and United Way. I work for Metro Care Services, which is a behavioral health organization. I work for University of Houston, Centene, all of these places, both corporate and nonprofit, and what I learned specifically in the corporate space is how to really hone in on funders and make that make sense. And I have United Way sitting off to the side slightly because though it is a nonprofit, that's where I learned how it looks to operate as a corporate entity, despite being a nonprofit. So I think if we take our cues from the corporate sector, we'll probably be a little bit better off in our approach to funding. So, can you please drop it in the chat? Why are you here? What excited you about this webinar? What interests you? I want to get an idea of what is sparking people's interest about these types of topics. All great responses. Yes. Oh, these are good. Yes, the government part is, yeah. We're having we're having a lot of conversations. Somebody in the chat wrote about essentially having a lot of their funding tied up in government spaces, and the reductions have had a lot to do with how I framed some of the content in the book because essentially what I'm learning based on my own market research is that eventually, when we bounce back, because we will, we need to make sure that the nonprofits are in tip-top shape and funders can have an easy yes, as opposed to going through a bunch of applications and there's no fit. So that's actually an amazing segue. Glad you're here. Okay, so you're here to discover the real reason strong proposals fail, learn why even beautifully written grants get rejected, spot the gaps funders see first. So really uncover the hidden red flags in your strategy, your systems, your leadership. And ultimately, if you do those, they'll save you on the back end and keep you from being eliminated right out the gate. You'll also stop chasing and start attracting funding. So using these techniques and these tools presented, for example, the PI method, will allow you to strategically identify and connect with funders who are the right fit for not just your budget, but for your actual mission. And then you'll also leave with a roadmap. So I want you to walk away with a clear, practical step on how to align your team, sharpen your message, and position your nonprofit for long-term funding success. So we'll go over the misalignment trap. We'll review grant readiness versus organizational readiness because there is a difference. We'll go through my clarity to capital framework and then see this in action with Instrumentl. And then we'll review some case studies. And I want you to get your mind already prepared to volunteer because I'd like to have an audience volunteer for that part too. And then we have a call to action at the end. So question, I don't know if we have the poll prompted, but if not, drop in the chat if you've ever submitted a grant knowing you had very little chance of being awarded. Lots of yeses. Same. Again, I also wrote and reviewed, so that's no surprise there. So if you answered yes, which most of you did, that's the misalignment trap. You can't outright misalignment. I wish we had an opportunity to have people come off of mute so they can say why they did it. But I'm probably gonna guess that this next slide or so is gonna allow you to see exactly why I said it's the misalignment trap. So, what is misalignment? It's the disconnection between your internal systems and external storytelling, your internal needs versus who you're asking. And what it looks like is applying for everything out of urgency. I know personally, I've been in a lot of organizations where it was essentially survival mode. We were just constantly trying to crank things out and hoping that we get the money so that we could sustain ourselves. So it didn't necessarily matter who we were targeting, we just wanted the funds. It also could look like strong narratives, but weak infrastructure. And also, in my own experience, I've been a department of two. So that causes problems when you're writing stuff and you don't necessarily have the bandwidth, the capacity, or the human capital to actually execute what it is you're telling these funders that you can do. What it might also look like is winning without the capacity to actually deliver. And so, funders, in my experience, when I've been trained and just in these conversations that I've had with people in that ecosystem, is that confidence comes through in your clarity, like how you present it to them. They can tell right away if it's a yay or a nay. And typically, if they don't see alignment by the second paragraph, they're tuned out. They stop reading. So we want to prevent you guys from falling into the misalignment trap. Out of sheer panic, because most of the time leadership is telling us we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And we all know, as the people that are producing these grants and writing these proposals, that there's no way that we can do it or that we'll be awarded, but we just do it anyway. I want us to be able to take a step back from that and figure out a way to make things easier on the back end so that when we are pursuing, we can be a little bit more strategic in our approach. So, with that, we'll focus on grant readiness versus organizational readiness. Even if even the best proposals can't fix a broken org chart, outdated financials, or unclear outcomes. And I don't know about you guys, but there have been several times where I've been asked to submit an org chart and none of the people on the org chart work at the company any longer. So those are the type of things that make it difficult to be productive, efficient, and keep your sanity for all intents and purposes when you're doing these applications. So grant readiness looks like your organization's ability to do the research, apply for, and manage for the grants or manage the grants. It basically delivers a competence level to the funder, while organizational readiness really is about you, your company, and what you guys have going on internally. So, your organization's ability to operate with internal strength and sustainability. You want to be able to convey to them that you can do this, and you can only do that if you have the proper infrastructure in place. So it reflects your capacity to manage funds, maintain compliance, execute programs effectively, and build trust with those stakeholders. Next slide. So if you look at this, but also in your workbook, you have this information as well. If you look at this side by side, you see what grant readiness is versus organizational readiness. And I'm not exactly sure how many of you, and feel free to drop it in the chat, how many of you ever even thought about the difference between what it would look like to be ready for a grant, but also not be ready as an organization to pursue. So I would say take a look at some of these, by definition, what the differences are side by side. And if you have any immediate thoughts, drop them in the chat because this is something that I have been mulling over for at least 3 years now, as a department of two. Previously, I always knew that there was something on the back end that it just didn't make sense. Like we would apply for the organization and the funder would say, yes, you're ready to pursue this. But on the back end, I knew that there was no way. There was absolutely no way we could do it. And I hate that we're constantly caught in the misalignment trap as a result of this. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to check your own readiness. So if you could look at some of these, let's like maybe eight lines, look at the notes and action items, and then on a scale of 1 to 5, write where you are in your organization, and we'll compare notes on the next slide. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to write 0 through 5. 0 meaning you don't have it. It's what is it? And 5 meaning yes, strong. We're good. And I think we can give it maybe a couple more seconds, and then we can go to the next slide and get some feedback from people. So let's look at these levels. How many of you got near 50, 36 to 50? Let's start off with competitive. Did you get a 36 to 50? 42. Oh, you guys are doing great. That's way better than my client. I love this. I love this. Okay, what about emerging? 21 to 35. How many do we have of those? Still seeing competitive. Any foundational? Okay. Good results, good results. So it sounds like a lot of you are emerging. So you have some key structures in place, but some gaps that could potentially limit your funding rates. But we have quite a bit of people in the competitive space where the organization is funder aligned and they're operationally prepared. This is really, really good. I recommend that everyone takes an opportunity to actively target funders and submit proposals using this moving forward, and also recalibrate quarterly if there are a bunch of different changes happening. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So this is an idea of where the clarity to capital framework kind of comes into play. So you don't have a funding problem, you have a clarity problem. And you have a clarity problem because you have an organizational readiness problem. A lot of you probably had an idea of being grant ready, but like we figured out in the beginning of the session, there's a lot of misalignment because we think we're grant ready, but we aren't organizationally ready to pursue funding. Next slide. So my framework, the Clarity to Capital framework, really four phases. And I think with these 4 phases, and you'll also be able to find this on page 3 in the workbook, these 4 phases give you a rundown of essentially what it would look like to implement these, what the outcome could be, and how we move into like really executing and getting into the competitive space pretty permanently. So assess, most organizations are deep into the work that they've never paused to audit internal alignment. In this phase, we help leaders ask better questions about leadership, compliance, narrative, and capacity. So oftentimes you'll hear people who are in this space say we thought we had a funding problem. We actually had a clarity problem. In the alignment phase, This is where momentum builds and gaps in staffing, strategy, or operations start to close, and board members get re-engaged or engaged. Programs get sharper, funders start to notice a difference because the internal clarity creates external credibility. And so in this phase, you'll start to hear nonprofits say we stopped trying to apply for everything and started building for the right things. And then the target phase, with internal readiness in place, we focus on funder fit. Not all dollars are worth pursuing. We use tools like the PI method, which we'll get to later. And that helps us qualify prospects and build relationship centered outreach strategies. And so you'll hear nonprofits say, for the first time, we knew exactly who we should be talking to and how we should talk to them. And then you have the final phase, which is execute. Now you're not rushing to write, you're ready to apply. Strong proposals flow from aligned infrastructure. And in this stage, our clients submit with confidence and win with intention. So we finally stopped scrambling and started submitting with strategy. And I like to say that we go from chaos to clarity. Next slide. So step one, again, the phase is to focus on assessing your organization. So with assess, let's pause, let's audit, let's align. So why assess? Most nonprofits skip this stage and go straight to grant writing, but without alignment, strong writing won't save a weak foundation. So again, in the beginning, we mentioned the misalignment trap. We've submitted tons of grants knowing that we weren't going to get them for a number of reasons, but a lot of that probably had to do with our assessment also. So, strategic plan, is it current? Does it guide our decisions? Board engagement, are they giving? Are they advocating? Or are they working with us? I know there are a lot of instances where boards don't really know exactly what they're supposed to do. And so I've delivered a bunch of not webinars, I've delivered a bunch of opportunities for boards to get on board, because you'd be surprised that they sign that paper and have no idea that they're supposed to be an advocate and an ally for the organization, or what it looks like to actually do that in real time. Assessing also looks like your financial systems. Are budgets and reports funder ready? We all know that they're going to ask for your audit. They're going to ask for your statements. These are the things that you need to have ready to go, and they need to be current because these are constant things that you're going to need. Mission plus impact clarity. Can you explain it in 2 sentences? I've given several presentations and in real time have had both the departments that are within the organization as well as the boards give us an elevator pitch of what the organization is. Give us the mission. Give us their metrics, just to see if everybody is aware. You can't properly advocate for your organization if you're not sure what the mission is, if you don't know what your metrics are, and your impact is a little fuzzy. So, what funders notice first is that gaps in compliance, leadership, and financial health outweigh even the most compelling proposals. So, once you complete the assess stage, you get a clear picture of where you stand. You mitigate risk and identify ones that maybe you didn't think about. And you get a baseline for building a fundable roadmap. So, the grant readiness scoreboard that we did earlier would be an introduction for assessing your organization. It's baseline, not super thorough, but it all gave you an opportunity to see where are we, where can we make some improvements, and where are some risks kind of dwelling in the past. My personal preference for my clients is the assessment tool, the nonprofit wellness audit. And so with this audit, I am able to identify any red flags within your organization and mitigate any future red flags that may interfere with development opportunities. This audit typically takes me 2 weeks to complete. I collect tons and tons of information from my client, and I essentially go through with a fine-tooth comb trying to figure out, okay, where do you guys stand? How can we make improvements? And ultimately, what's kind of sabotaging your organization right now? So this is on page 4 of your workbook, but in a lot of instances, especially with federal opportunities, you're going to need all of these things when you're applying. And so if you don't have them, you don't know where they are, they don't exist, or they're not up to date, it kind of leaves you scrambling at the end, which also adds to the essential angst of sending in and preparing for more opportunities. So drop it in the chat. If you look at the nonprofit wellness audit, look at that checklist. What's one internal gap you already know could raise a red flag with the funder? So if you look at this list, what's something on this list that you know that you don't have, or that somebody would say, oh no, this probably isn't a good fit. We might not want to fund their organization. Board support, budget. Yeah. No paid staff. Yeah. Strategic plan. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you guys even value the strategic plan. Most of my clients are like, we have an idea of like what we want to do, but and then it's like, well, that doesn't help us when we're asking people when we're asking people for funds. We have to let them know that we have a plan for the funding. We have a plan for the program. We have a plan for the project. And if they can't see that we have a strategy, then they're less likely to give us funding. Also, to that note, most funders want to see that you're able to execute with or without their funding. If you're riding your whole operation on them giving you money, it's not going to happen. So if your funding doesn't look like you can support what it is you're doing solo, you're also less likely to get funding. So that brings us to second phase, align. So align looks like closing the gaps and building credibility. So initially we said we're going to assess things. Once we've assessed them, now we have a clear idea of where our gaps are. And now it's time to close those. And so with being able to close the gaps, you're able to build the credibility. So what that looks like is moving from awareness and figuring out what you've uncovered from your assessment and like actually putting those things into action. So the core areas of alignment is strategy. Is your plan current? Does it guide your funding decisions? The people, do you have the right people in the right roles? Are your board members engaged, both financially and relationally? Because both of those things matter. Do you have a presence? Do you have a web presence, a brand presence, a community reputation? If I go into your community and mention your organization's name, what will people say? Will they even know who you are? Those are huge things in the space when you're asking for funding. And then leadership. Do they champion fundraisers, not just programs? Do they get involved with the fundraising at all? Like, are we all on board? Trying to close those gaps will build the credibility that you need so that you can confidently go to a funder and say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. These are the metrics that we have. This is the people that we're serving. How can you help us? Or can you help us? You have to get in alignment. So what funders notice is that the systems and stories don't match if you don't have all of the aforementioned things listed. So if your leadership is not on board, they'll notice that. If you don't have board engagement, they'll notice that. One of the worst things, and I teach it in my board on board training, is that you have board members who are still a part of the corporate world and there have been no introductions made. There's no in-kind donations. There are no matches. They don't even know that these people are on boards of these nonprofits. So misalignment erodes your credibility. So outcomes of this phase is stronger operations and staffing, sharper programs and messaging, increased board engagement and leadership engagement, and then funders begin to trust what they see and what they hear. So if you go to pages 5 and 6, we can talk about the alignment tool that I created, which essentially allows you to gain better clarity for either a program and or a project. So I use those interchangeably because we all know that there's a bunch of things that happen in nonprofits. But what this tool does is give you an overview of the program and project with an emphasis on the prospects and potential funding risks. So this gives you an opportunity to think like a funder in a way. So if you had, I always like to use Liberty Mutual as my example because one of the easiest grants that I would write annually and get no less than $15,000 from. But essentially, this worksheet allows you to get very clear on who it is that you're targeting, but also who it is that you're serving so that you can present this information to a potential funder and say, okay, right away, these are the stats, these are the metrics, these are the people that we serve, these are the potential outcomes, and it alleviates some of the fuzziness that also lives in you internally, so that when you are submitting these opportunities, you're not clueless as to why you didn't get it. Perhaps you didn't realize that they're not funding who you're serving in this season. So I think this is a good opportunity for everybody to kind of look these things over. And then also think about when you're completing this worksheet, who are the potential funders that you guys have in mind for specific programs and specific projects? And if you don't have anybody, maybe you should rethink why you might not have anybody, and if these people that you have in mind, that you want to go after, have they funded anybody else that has done similar work? Like, these are the type of things that you need to be thinking about when you're thinking about alignment. So you can do this on your own, but think about one system, one operation, one tool, one program, whatever, whether it's in your finance department, whether it's in HR, program data. Think about something that you know internally that needs more structure to support your funding growth. If you want to drop it in the chat, that's fine too. But this is something that I think that everybody needs to start really getting on board with in terms of the alignment phase that allows you to really put yourself in the seat of the funder. Like, what's missing? If I was looking at your application objectively, what might be something that I would notice right off of the bat? Like, right off bat, this is not going well. And if you, which we typically know as the writer and the person that's in the seat, we typically know what's going awry in the organization. If you know that, how long do you think before they'll figure that out as well? And note, the human bandwidth and human capacity, while you might write those grants, I've had firsthand experience of writing a grant, telling them that we could do it. And then when it was time to submit a report, I had nothing to report. We wrote a grant, we said that we can execute, no work was done. So think about how you might think you can get away with it until you can't. So let's look at what it looks like to target. I love the target phase. This is actually the more fun phase for me. So finding the right fit. I'm a believer in doing it right and doing it right the first time, which the program clarity worksheet kind of helps move you towards. So what target means. Once your house is in order, you assess, you align. The focus now shifts to who you pursue. Not every dollar is worth chasing. So core concepts of this is the PI method, which actually qualifies prospects. So PI, proximity, influence, evidence. Proximity, do they align with our mission and the population that we serve? Influence. Do you or your board members have any connection to them? Evidence. Have they funded similar work before? Why it matters. Misaligned applications waste time and credibility. Aligned targeting increases win rates and build trust with the funders. So if you are applying for homelessness funds and they support language, obviously you didn't do your research. So they're going to remember your name as the person who was completely misaligned with your application. So we have to be a little bit more strategic in who we're pursuing and why we're pursuing them. So the outcomes of the target phase, a focused prospect list, more strategic outreach, fewer rejections from bad fit funders, and stronger funder relationships over time. So if you turn to page 7 and 8 of the workbook, you'll see my favorite, which I created, but my favorite funding strategy tool, the Funding Strategy Starter, which is a prospective funding readiness overview using the PI method. And so with this snapshot, you essentially identify a potential funder, and then you give all of the key details that you might need to make a case as to why this may or may not be a good fit for your organization. And then based off of that information, you can decide in the next 90 days or so, is this something that we could work up to? So if this is a good fit, but we're missing some things, we might want to focus on several tasks that will get us closer to being able to properly prepare and being ready for that opportunity or that funder. So drop it in the chat. How many funders on your current prospect list are a true mission match? Just throw out a number if you have in your head. How many funders on your list? About 85%? That's awesome. 75%, 90. Oh, Shane, you guys are doing great. Love that. So you guys are doing the work. I wish I could talk to you more, Dai. I'd be interested in seeing, learning more about that percentage. 10%. So I think you guys are doing really well. In the past, I've learned that that isn't necessarily always the case. So I'm glad that we have a decent amount over 50%. So this brings us to the final phase of the framework, execute, which is the most fun. So once you get to this phase, you're able to submit with confidence and intention. So what execute means. After assessing, aligning, and targeting, you're ready to take action. This is where strong proposals flow from a solid foundation. So this looks like submitting aligned proposals. So quality over quantity, right? Using the templates, such as the ones that you have in your workbook, but also logic models and reducing last minute scrambling. Again, we're trying to get from chaos to clarity, building a clear follow-up stewardship plan beyond the submission. And then why this matters, funders remember relationships. All of the funding opportunities that I wrote for when I was at MetroCare, I believe. I was there for 3 years and we talked to the same people pretty consistently, enough to where they recognize not only my name, but the name of the organization. And so if we missed a deadline, they call and say, hey, we didn't get an application from you. This funder-centered, relationship-centered, a rapport that was able to be built saved us in a lot of instances. Oh, I forgot to submit it. Well, they're used to talking to us. They know that we're aligned and they want to give us funding. So we built credibility with them because we were on top of it. So those are the type of things that really make a difference. Execution without alignment equals wasted energy. And so execution with alignment equals credibility and momentum. Outcomes of execute, confidence in what you're submitting, higher win rates from stronger fits, and a 90-day roadmap that balances cultivation, submission, and stewardship. So I created a briefing tool. And so while it technically says board briefing, I do want to note that I created this because um, it facilitates the discussions with board members to increase awareness, engagement, and priority alignment while summarizing strengths, gaps, and funding priorities in one page. But also, it gives you an opportunity to get clear as well. And so I would say, though I have a funder snapshot that I created that's not in this package, it's a part of my accelerator. Um, this is a really good tool to use, not just for board members, but internally as a department as well. And so if you are able to look at this and get a really good overview of what your strengths are currently, what your gaps and risks are currently, any and all of your metrics, things that you need to pursue in the next 90 days to make your strategic funding priorities strong, then that's exactly what you need to be focused on. So, personal reflection question, if you'd like to drop it in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But when was the last time you submitted a proposal that felt 100% aligned? Love that. Oh, today. Yes, Renee. Love that. Okay. I love it. I love it. That means we're in the right track. You guys are a good group. So, just in summation, so you guys get a good overview of what the Clarity to Capital framework looks like. Building fundable nonprofits, but powered by strategy. That's my tagline. So, the four stages to the readiness is assess, which is pause and audit. During this phase, you identify internal gaps, you establish a baseline of fundability. And then the align phase is where you close the gaps. So you're strengthening strategy, people, presence, and leadership. And then with also in that phase, you're building internal credibility that funders can trust. And so you move into the target phase because after you've assessed, after you've aligned, now it's time to find the right fit. You use the PI method, which is proximity, influence, and evidence, to figure out who you need to focus on and who matches your mission so that you can execute seamlessly. So you're submitting with intention. So now you're aligned with these funders and what they're funding, and you can be more confident when you submit your proposals. So the Clarity to Capital framework can promise you that with the assess phase, you'll clarity inside creates credibility outside. Once you align, your alignment ensures sustainability and repeatable investments. And once you have a clear idea of who you should be targeting, every proposal is backed by a funder ready system. And then when it's time to execute, the tools, you have the tools that don't just prepare you to apply, they prepare you to deliver. And with that, I would love for Rachel to give us an idea of how Instrumentl could be instrumental in helping us get to this.
Hey, Chermain. I'm going to take only one moment to talk about this because as I've been going, I literally have your book like right in front of me and I've been panning through it and just looking at these like resources are amazing. I'm seeing everyone in the chat. I've been responding to everything. Okay. But what I wanted to highlight is exactly what Chermain just said. Some of what we've talked about in the chat is assessing, right, whether or not funders are the right fit for us. This leads to clarity, which leads to all of this credibility that Chermain has kind of built into her framework. So Shaylee talked about it in the beginning, but for folks who are unfamiliar with Instrumentl, we now have, I just checked this morning while we we're on this call, we have 26,000 grant opportunities within our database that you can use this framework that Chermain just introduced to assess whether or not something is a good fit within, I'd say, under 2 minutes, right? And I highlight Instrumentl just as a tool that everyone here can have access to. I pulled this picture because I thought this was so fun. This is our CEO, Gary, and our co-founder, Angela, working 10 years ago on building the Instrumentl algorithm, which is based on so much of what Chermain was just sharing. Like, why would a funder and a nonprofit match, right? And what is it that means that they have perfect alignment? And this is literally them working on building the algorithm. Yeah, by hand. You can see them doing it. So I want to give folks who haven't had a chance to get into the Instrumentl platform access today. Shaylee's going to help me drop a link into the chat for folks who are new to that. If you already are an Instrumentl, you can follow along with me for 2 seconds and just see if the way you're currently pulling up your searches is the most effective. And for folks who are like, oh, I actually tried Instrumentl a while ago, haven't been in there in a bit, Shaylee will drop another link for you to request a trial extension. This will give you a few more days to explore, see what's new in the platform. Also, again, apply what Chermain is talking about to the Instrumentl database, which I just think is a fun application of what we're literally learning right now. So you'll see the chat box link. You click that. If you're new to Instrumentl, you'll fill out your information. Super simple, your name, your email, all that good stuff. Folks will be able to book a call with one of our grant advisors. So if you're thinking like, I need some help navigating this and figuring out exactly what makes the most sense for my nonprofit or your clients, feel free to book a call with someone and they'll walk through it with you one-on-one. Otherwise, there is an option to skip down at the bottom and you can do so there. And I'm just going to show you exactly, I started working on this while Chermain was sharing her framework, but one of the orgs that I think might be in the room with us today, I'm not sure if they registered, but I'm not sure if they're here, the National Breast Cancer Foundation. I was taking a look at their website and again, emphasizing that I can quickly see on their website what they're working on, the programs and constituents that they're supporting. And so I was looking at their national mammography program and I thought, well, this would be a great search for us to see if there are aligned funders with this program. So you'll see as you sign up for Instrumentl, the first thing it's going to have you do is create a project. You could actually, if you were working in your workbook, there was that program clarity worksheet that Chermain shared, had a couple of key things in the fill in the blanks, who your program serves, what outcomes it aims to achieve, and then any, proof of impact. I know Delilah and a couple other folks, Chris, are talking about measurement impacts, right? Think about what you would put in there and you can copy and paste that into this project setup page. Instrumentl is going to do some of the heavy lifting for you and generate some keywords based on that search. So I'll let it analyze. I just copied and pasted this from the National Breast Cancer Foundation's website. And it's come up with a couple of great topics, keywords, right? We're going to look at healthcare access and delivery. Since this is a specific medical focus, we're going to select that there. Women's health. I would suggest selecting about 2 to 5 to start. And then this is where you would narrow down exactly what you're funding for. Again, you can pull it from that program clarity worksheet. That's a great example. Here, I'm going to put the applicant type. It's a nonprofit. Also, maybe partnering with hospitals and clinics. So I want to make sure to indicate that there. This is not a faith-based organization, but if folks are faith-based in the room, you can click that there. This is inside the United States, but I'm going to say that the project is national in scope, considering it's the National Mammography Program. And then the size of grants, right? Again, we want to figure out what's actually worth our time to apply for. For this example, I'm just going to use 50K as our minimum, but you can adjust that based on your capacity. And we've got a couple of different uses for the funds, education, projects, maybe there's some general operating expenses, more training and capacity building. And then the last thing we would want to do is highlight the types of funders we're interested in seeing funding from. Again, this is just maybe also a way for you to gut check on alignment. If you're like, maybe we're not quite ready to apply for some of those federal grants or government grants that require additional compliance structures, take those off that list for right now, and you'll save and exit. The last thing I'll highlight here is that you'll be able to see, I'm hopeful, hundreds of opportunities that will align with exactly what you're looking for funding for right now. For folks who've seen this magic of the Instrumentl algorithm, this won't be a surprise to you, but I'm always pleasantly buzzed by how many opportunities come up. Yeah, so it looks like we found 300 grants across different types. And the last thing I'll highlight before I pass it back to Chermain to wrap us up with some of the kind of like, we've looked at, right, alignment. We want to talk maybe about like what the red flags are when we're seeing misalignment. In order to determine alignment, right, I want to be able to take a look at the funder, do a little more deep digging on who they are and what they've funded. Mary asked a great question in the chat about regional funding, right? If a funder hasn't given in my state before, should I pursue that opportunity? I would say that's not super like maybe black and white. I think that if there are other factors as you're looking through this funder profile that highlight to you, this seems like a good fit, I would encourage you to check it out. But you can actually look in Instrumentl. You can see if there's key people at the foundation that you might know or that you might be able to pass off to your board and say, do you have any connections here? You can look at their total giving year over year and their average grant amounts. And then this is the one that I think Mary would be most interested in, is a little map of where have they given in the past and what organizations have they given to and what did they actually fund. So I encourage you again to take exactly what you did with Chermain's workbook and dig into Instrumentl. You have 14 days to explore it for free, no strings attached. And this is a great way to apply exactly some of those alignment tactics that Chermain shared with real life funders. With that, I want to highlight maybe some of the things are red flags, right? Our misalignments. And Chermain, I'll have you come back on to talk a little bit about these as we wrap up our program.
So I'll spend a few seconds. This is also in your workbook as well. But looking at what misalignment in action actually looks like. And so for these type of opportunities, I have a case study. So what we can see with this particular organization, what was missing is their systems, their grant tracking, and consistent language. And what shifted is that they were able to identify those gaps. And as a result of them identifying the gaps, I don't want you to look at the actual result, but I want you to look at how they got to that. They were able to create a funder dashboard and calendar and updated their language. So when you're looking at misalignment, look at what's actually the root of the problem, what step you can take to make that shift, and then the result of that, which essentially builds sustainability. So let's go to the next one because I want us to get to the questions and call to action. This is similar. So what was missing for this particular case study? Funding diversity. So we've mentioned had in the chat some interesting things happening with the government and cuts and so on and so forth. So what helped with this particular opportunity was clarity. So getting more clear on their mission, their vision, and their programs. And as a result, they were able to identify aligned funders and increase awareness. And with the funding diversity component, we need to lean more into CSRs, corporate social responsibility. These are going to give you the corporate dollars so that we're not focused so much on government dollars. And so funding diversity is crucial. I want you to, in your own time, think about your organization's mission, funding or internal challenges, and then think about what's missing, what's likely to shift, and what you're likely to have as a result of really honing in on those misalignments. And so the fun part for me is this call to action because clarity attracts capital. So I want to extend to you all, if you're interested and you're ready to stop chasing grants and start attracting aligned, repeatable investment, this is your moment. So this is an exclusive invitation. And if you turn to I think it's 13 and 14 in your workbook, you'll get a fully fleshed out idea of what the Grant Accelerator is. But I'm opening 5 slots and 5 slots only for a founder cohort group. So this is a cohort for the Premium Grant Accelerator. It's something that I created. It's a curriculum based off of not only my book, but my workbook and my journal. And essentially, founders will get an opportunity to spend 6 weeks with me and 4 other organizations, and we'll really go through with a fine-tooth comb all of your internal structures and systems and really help you get on the right track to funding the right way and seeking funders who are really invested in you and what you have going on and getting you clear about all of those things. You'll get all of the things that were in the workbook that I got you, that you got from here, but also in the grand scheme of things, there's a huge workbook that you'll work through throughout that time that we work together in that 6 weeks. So I'm opening up five slots only. If you're interested, step one, just send me an email. So you'll email contact@claritytocap.com with the subject header Instrumentl and attach your grant readiness scoreboard. So the one that we completed in today's session, fill that out and attach that to that email. Then the first 5 emails will receive a confirmation email with an application to complete, and then return that to me by September 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then I will review and select those spots and get back to you guys by September 12th. And we will move forward with the founders cohort group, and you'll receive your acceptance and all of your next steps. Everybody will, in attendance, will get a free book. You'll get a free journal. You'll get the full extended workbook that I create. That's the companion to the book itself. We'll have live one-on-ones once a week, and it's a 10-week program, and it'll all be hosted on Zoom. So if you're interested in that, definitely go ahead and email contact@claritytocap.com or contact@claritytocap.com with the subject header Instrumentl, and attach your grant readiness scoreboard. Final thing is questions. I know we don't have a lot of time, but would love to answer any questions. Oh, wait, you have upcoming events. Sorry, spoke too soon.
No worries. I'm gonna drop these upcoming events in the chat. We would love to see you folks there to hear from experts like Chermain. Next week we're doing a funding managing federal grants. I know there's a lot of question about the government grants today with Rachel Werner. So a couple of tips to stay audit ready. And we also have our pro level post-award playbook. We've got an exciting grant management workshop coming up. But in addition to that, Sherman, I actually saw a couple of questions come in about your founders group that I wanted to give you a second to address. A lot of folks are asking about the cost of the founders group. So I think if that's something you could clarify, that'd be great.
The founders group is free. So I am partnering with Instrumentl. And Rachel and I think we had a conversation maybe 2 or 3 months ago when I was telling her I was building a curriculum. So this is free for Instrumentl attendees only. So the first 5 um, people that send me an email and we get through the assessment and it makes sense and it's a good fit, we're partnering, we're doing this 6 weeks. It will launch, I'm thinking October 7th, but I want to get a little bit more understanding of everybody's availability so that I can make sure that we all can meet together and convene. And this will give you guys an opportunity to both learn from me and for me to use so that I can better serve the nonprofit sector. So it's free, it's free, it's free.
Great. And I know we are a minute over and we didn't quite get to questions today. But we wanted to share Charmaine's LinkedIn, and Rachel will also drop mine and Rachel's contact information in the chat so we can follow up with folks that have any questions about the content that Charmaine covered today, because it was really thoughtful, really thought-provoking. So we're super happy to have had her. And again, her contact information is on the screen. We'll follow up with questions in the post-event recap. So thank you, folks. Thanks for joining us today afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
And as folks are heading out, please take that feedback survey as a reminder. The raffle prize is Charmaine's book, as well as a Headspace membership to really find some of that internal alignment for yourself as well. Thank you, folks. Okay, I'll end the session for everyone.
Thanks, everybody.